Blake, you ever felt like you needed personal security here at Church Gear?
100%. Then I finally have someone to sick on you.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who is taking applications for my personal Toby beater-upper, and I'm here with my co-host who is the plaintiff in question, Toby Can't Speak for Nothing Walters.
Can't speak for nothing. Is that a Smyrnism? Do all our audience, if they have any idea where Smyrna, Tennessee is?
Dude, did you not know that I host a annual Come Hang Out at Church Gear podcast, co-host Blake's hometown tour?
Wow.
We do Smyrna tours all the time.
Yeah, it's kind of like the bourbon tour up in Kentucky.
Yeah, see, you had these mix events and you were charging me $500 to attend, and I was like, I'm going to make a Church Gear mix event and not even tell Toby about it.
See, I was trying to think of who accosts you most. Like, if you need personal security, it's probably because Zach Lamb won't leave you alone, our buddy from House Right.
No, Zach sends me funny reels. It's you, Toby. You won't leave me alone in every staff meeting we're in.
I've got to have somebody to do it. Like, I mean, let's be honest here. When we get into meeting mode and people want to talk about like serious thing, like company policy and updating this and talking through workflows, dude, my brain is thinking, what are we doing here? Is
Toby get bored?
Do I have a job now? What? Yeah, Toby get bored. So Toby then need to text Blake stupid things so he can distract himself in meetings.
Oh gosh! Hey, we just put entertain Toby as one of my job bullet points, like my job description. That'd be great.
I know. I don't disagree. I think a lot of our listeners often wonder, how did Church Gear actually become a company? And I think I was just smart enough that after you, I hired real employees.
Toby goes, I won't die from boredom.
Yeah.
Okay, we actually have to get some money in the door.
So then we hired smart people here and let them do what they do well.
And they sequester us to this little room on this podcast
microphones
that doesn't even get published. It just keeps us out of their hair.
So speaking of having a microphone, I used to be a worship leader, Blake. You know this, which means that I was on stage with a live microphone in like real life. No editing, no post-production. Is just what happened.
When most people get to heaven, they're going to ask God, like, are dinosaurs real? Mm-hmm. You know, is Calvinism versus Arminianism? My question is going to be, how did you let Toby on stage?
I know. I had dreams where I was always led worship with a guitar. But, you know, if you're on stage, like the fear is always your fly's open. So I had dreams where my fly was open and I realized I didn't have a guitar to, you know, cover my midsection. I was like, oh no, everybody sees my fly's open. But that never happened in real life, thankfully, as far as I know.
Toby, there's this thing called repression when you have a bad memory.
That's a good point.
Don't ask your therapist about that.
It's
don't dive into that.
You keep saying, you know, what episode number are we on now?
It's probably like 215 at this point, around there.
And I'm thinking there have been other episodes of this podcast. I've just repressed all the memories because they're so bad. So now I'm on stage one Sunday and we are kind of, uprooting the traditions of this church that was
because they let you in there.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't traditional, but it was, you know, a little more withheld with the style of worship, the volume they were running. And the pastor really wanted just the new modern sound. And we're talking, you know, 2007, 8. So my band was in there and we're doing the new modern sound. We're doing very like Hillsong United kind of vibe, Elevation kind of vibe. So it's kind of rock and it's kind of loud. And most people really enjoyed it. Obviously, this was the pastor's vision. So that's, first of all, very important. Are you following the vision of your pastor for what you're doing? But as with any change, some people don't like it.
Turn it down.
I know. So after a Sunday morning, sitting with the band in the green room, backstage, it's like back a hallway, you know, you got to go through 2 sets of double doors to get there. And so we're hanging out, we're chatting. And all of a sudden, this guy just appears in the green room.
You had a fan.
A fan. That's what we assumed as well. Until he started berating us and yelling at us and saying, this is not a Led Zeppelin show. This is not a rock concert. You need to turn it down. And he wasn't even that old. And I'm like, dude, how did you get in here? What is even happening?
So where'd you bury him?
So what happened is I told the pastor and he was horrified. Pastor and I were very close. I loved working with him. And he was like, I promise you this will never happen again.
Because you buried him.
The next Sunday, there was security posted and there was like a full-on cordoned off for that whole hallway. I was like, dude, this is amazing. Pastor putting security to protect the band from angry tirades.
Man, Toby, that is so crazy. You literally created a new serving ministry by making people angry.
You're welcome.
And someone who would have been the first person to sign up for that new ministry is the former audio director at Celebration Church, and
Use your
Church
words.
Reach and Church
City
Reach.
Reach Church.
And City Reach Church in Austin, and competing with Todd Elliott for everyone's best friend in tech, Ivan Diaz. Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast presented by House Right, Ivan. We're glad to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
Ivan, I know you have a little bit of a story similar. So did you ever have an instance where you needed security at front of house?
Oh, man. Yeah, actually, there was a time where I was mixing and I thought I had a really good mix. And so I'm like deep in the thought. I'm like, this is amazing. This is going well. Obviously, my focus was straight to the stage. And out of nowhere, I just felt like something just like stabbed me or pricked me in the back. And I'm just like, okay, that was weird. And so I turn around. There's this old gentleman with his cane still pointed at me saying, turn it down, turn it down. So I freak out because I'm like, okay, what do I do here? And so I look over at my technical director at the time, Christian. He's like, just keep mixing. I'll take care of it. He pulls the old man out. He goes and has a conversation with them. And he might be there next to your gentleman in the burial site. I don't know where he went after. Yeah, that was quite the experience.
See, I wonder about, I've always thought the sound booth walls are a nice metaphor because most production guys and girls are introverts. They want a little bit of separation so they're not accosted by all the people. And then also let's keep the opinions outside of these walls. But when dude has a cane and he could reach over and just poke Ivan in the back, man,
That's
Blake,
intense.
why did you do that?
Well, is this the time to confess that I also have gotten in trouble with security trying to talk to production people?
No, that doesn't surprise me at all.
I was at the Gregory Alan Isikoff concert and I was like, ooh, I should go talk to the production people because I work in production and I can ask them some things and I'll tell it on the podcast. And I go down to be like, what console are you running? This security guard came up to me and she was like, you cannot talk to them. Like, you have to back away. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it was in the intermission. I thought we were chilling. No. So clearly she heard y'all's stories and she's like, no one gets to talk to this person.
Yeah. Ivan, did you get any security at front of house after that?
I did. Yeah. The request was, do you want to press charges or do you want a security? I said, I'll just take this.
Did they really? Was that really an option?
That really was. That was just because, it technically was a, he actually did. How would you say? I wouldn't say he put my life at danger, but he did actually attack me in a sense.
The definitions for assault are actually pretty thin. It's
assault and battery.
There's another one, but it's even just threatening someone. So really, I'm going to press charges on Toby right after this episode. Clearly, I've got a list of grievances.
Because right now, I'm going to threaten to bury you if you don't behave on this podcast.
Perfect.
Yes.
Ivan, you want to split church gear with me, bro? Right after this.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if we don't split church gear together, or if we do, I need to know your background. So, tell us how you got into church production. How did you end up talking to us today?
So as far as getting into church production, I'm originally a bass player. So I was a musician first. And I remember at my local church playing bass, we would have a sound guy sometimes. And when I wasn't playing bass, I would kind of go back there and dabble. I was like, what do all these faders do? And I probably messed up quite a few EQs before I realized what. And so as time went on, I went to Bible college, studied music. And while I was there, they're like, hey, do you want to do sound? I was like, actually, that'd be kind of fun. And so I got more into it then. When I came back home from that, I actually started getting connected at Celebration Church at the time. And I mentioned it to my worship director. I was like, hey, if you ever need help with sound, I know a little bit. He was like, okay, well, why don't you build me a mix? And so I did. And he goes, yeah, it doesn't sound bad. And hit the recall button. He goes, build it again. And so I was able to rebuild the mix there. He's like, okay. He goes, maybe we'll schedule you soon. And I didn't hear for like a month. I didn't hear anything about possibly. And then all of a sudden he goes, hey, we need you to do sound. And probably 3 months after that, he goes, I think you're ready for the big leagues. And what he meant by that was I was mixing in our overflow room that fit about maybe 300 to 400 people. And our main sanctuary at the time fit about maybe 11 to 1,200 people. And so the big leagues was that room. And so I was able to mix in that room and get a decent mix. And I would say probably about a year and a half after that, they're like, hey, would you consider coming on staff with us? And so the rest was history from there.
See, that's what Toby does to all my marketing campaigns. He just goes, that was cool. And then he deletes the files. So.
And then say, build it again.
Yep. I know how you feel, Ivan.
Yeah, that was good times.
Yeah, I love that. Just, from step one, just telling your worship pastor, hey, if you ever need a hand, I know a little. I like just admitting I know a little. Blake, you would admit I know nothing, but bro's happy to help.
If you want some enthusiasm, here we go. Some enthusiasm and mistakes. Here you go.
Yeah. Ivan, so I got to come visit the Austin area. I used to live in Austin and Round Rock, like 5 minutes from Celebration Church where you were. I don't know how we weren't best friends back then. But, coming to Austin and then starting to reach out to churches, I started to hear your name multiple times, and everybody kind of said, hey, if you want to connect with other people in town, Ivan's the man. He knows everybody in town. And I know you don't know everybody, but it seemed like you knew more than anybody else in the town. So talk to us about how did that come to be? How'd you build your network of people in Austin?
Yeah. One, I would say a lot of it came from being part of Celebration Church. It's a very influential church in the area. And when people would come to the booth, I didn't have a problem answering questions. And so it quickly came from hey, how do you use your piece of gear how could I use that in my church kind of conversation? And I had no problem giving my phone number out. And so people would reach out to me, and sometimes it'd be a kind of like free consultation. And so obviously that was a gamble, but so I just would answer questions as much as I could. I would actually do visits to churches hey, maybe this Friday I'm free. I can come by and just see what you're dealing with. And it wasn't until the pandemic that it really took off for me, because a lot of folks were like, how do I live stream? How do I get sound? How do I make this functional? And so a lot of conversations started happening since then. And I feel like just a simple willingness to have a conversation led to a friendship at some point. And so word of mouth, one friend tells the other friend, and all of a sudden these churches are connecting, and they're like, hey, have you heard of this guy, Ivan? Maybe you should reach out to him. And so lo and behold, my contact list just started growing, and people were just reaching out to me. And I was just really thankful to be a part of, some people's journeys.
That's awesome. Blake, I feel like our listening audience at this point is like, oh my gosh, here we go again on this whole build your network of people, connect with other techs in town. From marketing standpoint, how many touch points does it take before people actually pay attention to something?
9 to 14.
Okay. So we're going to aim for 481 to instill this into their brains. But Ivan, we keep talking about this exact thing, that techs love to help. And then so many churches everywhere are in desperate need of help. I told the story just recently. We're out at event with our buddies at House Right. 300 church techs from all over Orange County and LA came together and gathered. And, one girl in my session raised her hand and said, we don't have anybody that knows audio. So how do I train the volunteers in my church when we don't even have somebody at our church that knows audio? And so I then asked the class, who's within 45 minutes of her church that would actually be willing to help? And 7 people raised their hand. I said, there's all your experts. They're just down the street. So I love that, you didn't wait for somebody else to do it. You just took it upon yourself and you became the man.
Yeah. I felt there was a need, and I was like, if I have the abilities to help, then why not?
Love it.
I also hear a lot of faithfulness in that he just took the first step of, giving someone his number or reaching out once. And then it sounded like, reach out once, add water to, instant mashed potatoes, and boom, a whole plate of contacts. It's funny how just one act of faithfulness can really make the whole thing tumble like a snowball going down a hill. So if you're intimidated on building your network, just try one reach out. You never know what'll happen.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
Ivan, from your perspective, you just talked about being friendly at front of house. Was that just simply your first step? You didn't, you'd actually engage and talk to people at front of house, and that was just your first step?
Yeah. I mean, just like you were talking about earlier, where you would go up to the person that's running sound at a show and you're like, hey, what are you running? And so we were visible at front of house there at Celebration Church. And so it was very easy to just step into the area and ask a question. And so I always like to be approachable, because like I said, before being an audio engineer, I was a musician. And so as a musician, you want to be around other musicians that are better than you. And so being humble is the first step to be, leveling up. And so I always kind of kept that in my mind. I was like, if I have someone who has a question that's like a genuine question, not just like wants to talk shop, which is I'm okay with, but if you have a genuine question that needs help, then I'm going to help you.
Yeah. I love that. And also I feel like, you were taking your calling seriously, that you said, you're at Celebration, which is one of the largest, most influential churches in town. And so an encouragement to other listeners, like if you're at the church that everybody else is watching, I really feel like part of your calling then is to help others understand how and build a community, because everybody's looking to you. And so don't just, even if you're, mixing at the booth at some major church in town, don't be hiding there. Don't be overwhelmed. Let the community in on what you're doing and help make that connection. I love that.
Absolutely. Same thing goes for, you never know, that one conversation can lead to your next volunteer or your next, your replacement at some point, And so I was always keeping that kind of in the back of my mind. It's like, this young kid could be the next me. So why not pour into him now?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I thought with you, Blake, that you could be the next me, but then it took, 13, 14 seconds before I realized, nope. That's why Michael Scott always had, Dwight Schrute. He kept wanting to be the assistant, the regional manager, the assistant regional manager, but he kept saying, no, the assistant too.
See, then I went to therapy and I got a boss and everyone was like, stop trying to be like Toby. And I was like, oh crap, I guess I have to pivot. I have to pivot.
And I'm going to steal your segue. So,
no!
Ivan, you pivoted. You help a lot of churches out in the Austin area, and you've also been connected to a City Reach, and I got to go see City Reach. You guys launched a new campus just this past October, and what you guys are doing is, like, production-wise, it was awesome to see. Can you talk about just some of the systems you guys just, put in, installed, implemented, and how's it going so far?
Yeah, so a lot of the technology to us at the time was new. We were basically researching how can we make this future-proof, not just take what we have now and buy the new version of it, but how can we future-proof what we have? And so with that, a Sky Cam went into play, a Soundscape went into play. We went to, went from Blackmagic switchers to raw switchers. And all those things were setups for improvement, not only in the now, but for the future.
Yeah, I mean, you must have drugged your pastor and convinced him that he's going to, invest in all these systems. So you guys have Ravage at front of house, you got Grand MA3, but then I walk into other spaces like the youth room and the kids room and overflow, and you got DM7s and you have Grand MA3s. And I'm thinking, man, you guys really invested in it. A very well thought out, but like you said, future-proof. How'd you get, leadership on board to actually invest in that future-proof technology?
It was a back and forth conversation for sure. It was like, do we really need it now, or can we buy this later? And I think a lot of where the leadership understood was, if we make the investment now, we can train people up faster because it's so consistent and streamlined. If you have a kid who has a fair understanding of what it looks like to program their version of lighting in their kid room, you move them up to the youth room, and all of a sudden the console feels the same, the programming feels the same. Move them into the main sanctuary. Hey, this looks familiar. I've been working on this for the last 5 years. So there you go. Now you've built a volunteer from the ground up that can honestly build either a show file for your lighting console or the audio console. Yamaha speaks Yamaha, right? It might look a little bit different, but ultimately it's all there. And so to be able to get leadership to buy in we're not like, don't think about it just as a upfront large investment, but we're investing also into our future volunteers, into our future kids, into just making sure that people are learning and growing together. Not one section is really sharp and the other section's not. Yeah.
I love that as kind of a funnel up to the main room for volunteers. You're literally having kids learn on an MA3 in the kids room. Like, that's not normal. Most churches are lucky if they get an MA3 at front of house, but you got several of them across campus. So I love that, getting volunteers moving into the same space. Let's talk about Soundscape specifically. So you guys did Soundscape in your main room. You seat around 1,600?
Yeah, right around there.
And so what's the learning curve been like for you guys in object-based mixing? Because it's a different thing, but a lot of churches are starting to make that transition.
Yeah, I just have to approach it with a not normal way of thinking. So like the best way I could put it, it's like you can drive fine in America, but you go to Europe and you have to relearn how to drive essentially because everything is so backwards, right? And so with traditional mixing, left, right, spaces, everything. So you're cutting out EQs, you're compressing things so that your main vocal can pop through. And so with soundscape, it still requires you to have good processing as far as EQ and gain staging. All that is very important, but the need to carve out so much space for a lead vocal or lead guitar or whatever it is just not the same anymore. And so you have to really approach things a little more natural, where it's at the source is way more important than getting behind a console and start chopping at it with plugins and all that. It's like, no, take a little time to listen to it and then finding out where you're going to put it in your mix. And so I think sometimes a misconception with soundscape is we're going to make this thing as wide as possible. It's like, no, you don't have to do that because then you will get some phasiness. So more than anything, it's like the best way I can put it is like where you see it, you want to hear it. And so if I see it to my left, I kind of wanted to have that natural feel of hearing it to my left versus all over me. Does that make sense? I hope that that's making sense. But that's kind of how I approached mixing in soundscape was more of don't just try to make everything super wide, but make it more intentional.
Yeah. What was training like for you guys? Was it, watch a few YouTube videos, try it out for a day, and then boom, we got it? Or is it a learning curve to actually get it ingrained in how you do it?
You definitely do want to put in some work in the front end. So if you can start watching videos on YouTube, or I know I've been seeing a lot of my buddies who are doing installs and they're inviting people, hey, come listen, come watch this person mix on a soundscape. I would take advantage of the opportunities if you can, because to say, yeah, I got this. This is like mixing on Clang, right? And so it's like, no, it's a little bit different. And so you definitely do want to put in some front end work as far as watching videos. But to say your mix is going to get dialed in the first month, I'm gonna be honest. It's not going to be true. It's probably going to take some time. I believe a friend of mine told me it could take up to like 90 days to finally get your mix dialed in to what feels comfortable. And even then, like it's all relearning, really. And so, breaking old habits takes time, and definitely developing new ways and new strategies. But once you really spend time with it, you're like, okay, this makes sense. This is why our industry is headed that way.
So once let's just say 90 days, you get your mix dialed in, and then at that point, do you feel like it's easier or the same or more difficult to then put a volunteer in that seat and have them mix from that, that show file as opposed to a stereo show file? Is it easier? Is it harder? What do you think?
I wouldn't say necessarily that it's easier, but once you put in that foundation, it should be as seamless as, okay, you can still fader mix. You're just not having to rebuild it from scratch every single time. I would always suggest that you build the foundation mix, have them run it a couple weekends to where they understand why things are in position where they're at, instead of giving them like full control, like, hey, yeah, sure, move the guitar as far right as possible. And so kind of thing. And so I wouldn't give that much freedom yet until you genuinely understand what it's doing.
Yeah. I heard Luke Vogel, our buddy who now works Fulcrum. Yeah, Blake, words are hard. And we know all these manufacturers, like they all have different names. You got to remember all of them. So Fulcrum.
Well, and people don't just switch churches. They switch manufacturer jobs or integrator jobs. It seems like every 3 years as well.
I know.
So this is the one time I'll give you a little grace, Toby. It's hard to keep it all in track.
So Luke Vogel was talking about this very thing. And we often assume, mixing in immersive is going to be, or object-based mixing is going to be way harder for volunteers. But he said he's actually found it's easier once you get the mix dialed in because they have so much more space that they're not trying to compete with frequencies and everything into a stereo mix, that now there's all this space. So once it's set up properly without, Ivan, like you said it, like weird phasing things happen, it's actually easier for them potentially to do it because everything's spaced out for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely.
Ivan, do you find that to be true?
I do. Yeah, I do agree with that. Like I said earlier, with the traditional left-right mix, you are basically trying to shove a ton of sound down to sources, and so with having more outputs, it's definitely you're going to have a way more relaxed sounding mix versus everything just sound like it's being squeezed.
See, I've loved Soundscape from the first moment I interacted with it, but I've been searching what's like the why. You can tell your pastor, because you can't say this will be really cool. Like that's not a good reason. So what I'm hearing is it's easier for volunteers, which means it'll be easier for the congregation to worship. That's a good why.
Yeah. And Ivan, you said it as well, going to hear it, going to experience it. I know you kept getting lit up with text messages from me introducing other churches to you guys. Cause I mean, I drove 20 minutes down the road to Austin Stone and they were talking about, we'd really like to do Soundscape, but we don't have time to drive up to Dallas and see it at Prestonwood. And I said, dude, it's at City Reach 20 minutes away. Did you not know this? So yeah, like take your pastor and go see it, go experience it, because it is hard to explain. Your pastor's thinking, why do we need surround sound? Because that's the context they understand. But when you engage with it, if you come to a worship night or a rehearsal or something and you experience it, whoa, that is a whole different thing. Like you experienced it that first time at MXU.
It's life-changing.
Your dumb little mind was blown, Blake.
It's still not been put back together. That's been the deficiency this whole time. Ivan, I want to go back to getting, as Toby laid out, like all this amazing gear and you got it approved. Was there any one moment, you said you had a lot of conversations, where you said the right thing that got your pastor to see it in the right way, or you did, this right test or this experiment, or you trialed something? Like, was there a moment where you're like, oh, he gets it now. This is where he sees it?
I want to say it was a moment where we kind of casted vision as far as like, if we want to be a volunteer-based church, let's make sure they're set up for success. So we came from an environment where a lot of times things were being gaff taped to be able to be functional. And so we were like, well, if you're moving into a new home, why wouldn't we move in with the best? Why wouldn't we move in with stuff that sets up people for success, but also honors God well? And so we're going to be good stewards of our volunteers. Why not set them up for something that's going to set them up well?
Well, and it sounds like you also had a lot of different, not a lot of different, you had all the same gear. This is one of my few production hobby horses because I don't do production, but I like the concept that your volunteers can go anywhere in the church. It's not like, oh, well, Phil can only do this room and Steve is only trained on that room. That makes total sense to me, that it's worth the money to make your volunteers have such an easier experience.
Yeah. And Ivan, I'm thinking just the fact that, a lot of churches make the argument, we want the best gear. We want the best experience of the room on Sundays. And then oftentimes it's the integrator or the production person saying, well, only I'm going to be qualified to run this because it's the highest end stuff. We can't really trust this to volunteers. So it's a trade-off. But I love your guys' approach. No, we're going to get the best gear, but we're going to replicate it everywhere so that we can raise up volunteers and still have the best experience and the best equipment on Sundays. I mean, it's not a cheap investment, but I love that heart behind what you guys did.
Absolutely. And I think it's definitely one of those things that's paying off now. Like you said, at any given moment, anybody can run any room, and we're not limited to the amount of knowledge available.
Yeah. And correct me, your pastor is a former MMA or former bodybuilder or what?
Is he going to be the security guard we're hiring, Toby?
He's a former military Marines, actually.
Okay. So does he appreciate an aggressive approach when bringing a new idea?
He's one of those guys who is like, if you can not necessarily convince me, but what you're telling me, I'm going to trust you. So if you put in the work and you put in the research to make sure that this decision is being made 100% confidently, then I got your back.
Okay. I love that. Talk to us about room treatment and acoustics. Was that part of the initial project?
Yeah. So I forgot exactly the name of the type of technology, but it's the acoustics are actually built into the wall, and there's like a mesh that covers it. So you don't necessarily see it, but it's there. And so oftentimes people will walk in like, do you have any acoustic treatment? Like, yeah, you just don't see it because it's literally in the wall.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool to be able to have like a clean flat wall without a bunch of dimensions and objects hanging off of it, like absorbers and diffusers. And so that was really cool to be able to have our integrator run with that.
And was there ever a discussion of, should we cut this cost in order to save money?
Oh yeah, there's always that possibility, right? We definitely we felt that in our kids' rooms where that is actually part of phase 2 is acoustic treatment for those rooms. And so we were like, well, if we're gonna cut the cost anywhere, let's consider maybe there and not in our main sanctuary. Let's make sure that this is good to go from the jump.
The kids' rooms is where you need the most acoustics, though, because there's less bodies in there. Their bodies are a quarter of the size. They can't absorb the sound.
And they make a ton of noise.
Yeah. Last night I was at youth, and I was like, why is it so much louder? It's because there's not a full room. There's less bodies in there.
No, there you go.
And so I'm like,
fatten those kids up. Blake.
Yeah, you need to
feed those boys, those teenage boys.
We need more kids that are as fat as me in this room, but also like in the kids' room, I'm mostly saying this to be funny, but like there is less bodies in there to absorb the sound.
Yeah.
Ivan, also, acoustics is another life hack, like having all the same gear. We've been hearing this a lot on the podcast. If you had to pick between acoustics or gear on a budget item, which one would you go with?
Oh, definitely acoustics. I mean, I've been in rooms that are treated really, really well with some, affordable gear. I'll say it that way.
Sounds like Ivan was in one of our marketing meetings.
And I've gotten a decent mix out of that versus a room that has great technology and terrible treatment. I find myself that I've been in situations like that, and I'm almost like I'm fighting the mix the whole night. And so I would take acoustic treatment over the high-end gear pretty much anytime.
I concur. I mean, he even said it that so often, we say it. I wrote it in my book very clearly. Fix the room first.
You wrote a book, Toby?
I did.
Sacred Spaces, Modern Production. Get it.
Good job, Blake. So, Ivan, you're talking about you don't notice the acoustics. It's built into the walls, whereas so often it's the first thing that gets cut. We go over budget. And so we say, let's cut the room treatment. So you put up drywall, and then you're trying to fix the room later with weird visual solutions that aren't ideal, that cost more in the long run. If it was my decision, I would much rather spend the money on the acoustics first, get the room right, and put up the old PA for a couple years until we can afford a new one. Because Ivan, I think you're saying a similar thing. Like the old PA in a properly treated room is probably going to actually sound better than a brand new PA in a room with no treatment.
Absolutely. The best way I can put it is like, my wife and I, we actually have an old farmhouse that we're remodeling, and friends of ours told us you should probably fix the foundation before you go putting in new drywall. And I was like, I think I'll be fine. Well, I had to get it re-leveled, and when that happened, of course, the drywall broke. And so I would always say, like, fix the fundamental stuff and then add on the pretty stuff. And so that's what I would strongly advise before going to spend a ton of money on the latest and greatest gears. Like you said, get that room treated well.
Look, Grandma might be old, but she can drive a Bugatti. Amazing NASCAR driver. He can't drive a 1920s car that don't work anymore. Grandma is the old PA. The car is the acoustics.
I think your analogy is actually backwards.
Okay. Well, how about you drive us to something where we can see the light, Toby?
Okay. So a couple other really unique things you guys did at City Reach, which I want to visualize for our audience. So with your LED wall, you did traditional LED screen, but then you did something else in the ceiling. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So when the grid was made for the lighting, the grid stood out just a couple feet in front of the stage. And so we were kind of just looking at it. I remember one time, one of the pastors was looking at it along with our video guy. They were just kind of staring at it. like, what should we do with this? It's kind of just like sticking out. And so he goes, I got an idea. His name is DR. DR goes, well, why don't we put some LED strip on it, or not strips, LED panels on it. And we had a ton of them left over from the last building. And so he's like, I think I could do something with that. And sure enough, the whole front section of the grid is all LED wall. And so it was just, it kind of gave that like that feeling of the stage coming to you, like being even closer to you, the audience, just because of the visual, how it just pops out. And when it's actually like running graphics on it, it also feels very immersive. And it's just a simple looking at it, what looked like a sore thumb, all of a sudden was like, hey, this is a really cool idea. Let's run with that. And it turned out really awesome.
So Blake, visually, imagine you got your LED, like a big LED wall in the back of the stage. And then, up in the ceiling, you have all the lighting grid and stuff. So you have the lights up there and it's just not visually engaging. So they did a backwards U, an upside down U with more LED tiles. So maybe another 10% of your wall is up there, but it makes it look like it's coming out into the audience. And it visually, to me, it doubled the experience of the wall by adding 10% up in the ceiling that tied together. So it's like the stage is coming at you. It was a fascinating thing. It's such a simple solution. It's like, you got to see it. I put it up on Instagram, on my Instagram, but it's amazing.
That is so cool. Well, you saying it makes the stage feel like it's coming at you. I really like us making the stage and the congregation feel like one rather than two. So That sounds awesome.
Yeah. It was a really cool concept. Again, it was just one of those things like, what should we do about this? And so great ideas came from a simple, what could have been not necessarily a problem, but it was utilizing our space so it's max capacity.
Yeah. And if you want to see it, so City Reach Church, Leander, Texas. I assume just look at your live stream, look at your Instagram, that it's very obvious to see, if you want to visualize this in real life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or come stop by.
Yes.
Because apparently Ivan is the best friend in church production. So he's ready to say hi to you. And
then one other just really unique solution. So you guys are mixing broadcasts from backstage, and then you guys have another keyboard in the broadcast suite. Can you tell us why you have another keyboard back there?
Yeah. I guess the simplest way to put it was we didn't want to create a distraction when pastor was on his closing call. Oftentimes we would have, with especially our older stage, it was really creaky. So pastor's bringing into an intimate moment of salvation call, and you just hear someone sneaking onto stage, just kind of creaking. You're like, yeah, we should probably do something about that. And so one of our friends saw this at a different church, and he's like, what if we do that? But instead of it being like I think the way they had it set up was more of like a tracks person. They could, engage tracks from there. It was like, what if we actually play keys from there? And so we tried it, and it was a really successful moment. And so it was really cool because we were able to use one of our TVs in the back so that the keyboard player can get a visual of what's happening. And we give them a separate mix so they can move around. And so it really created this space of like removing distractions from what is such an intimate moment.
Blake at Fellowship is the keyboard player near the end of service. Always come back up and just start playing the pad under the final prayer and all that.
In church, there are two cliches. Jesus is the answer 90% of the time, and the keyboard player closes the service.
Yep. And so that's always my visual cue. Oh, the keyboard player is coming back up. So we're almost done. I love that. And this happens at every church I've ever been to in the last 20 years. It's such a simple solution. Have another keyboard somewhere off stage where you can do that, and it's not a visual distraction. I love that, Ivan.
Yeah, and it's really cool because it's also a very trainable moment. So when we have our younger keyboard players playing on a Sunday, and there's a transition happening, we can actually off stage help them navigate some of those softer moments. And it's like I said, it's a really cool moment to be able to train even in a live situation.
Yeah.
So, Ivan, one of the things I've noticed in your story is you really, are fighting for your volunteers and everyone that's around on your team, in that moment, also in the moment of getting all the same gear so you can train them all well. Tell us some other ways, maybe some less gear-focused ways, maybe some more soft skills of how you show love to your volunteers and help everybody on the team feel a part of the team.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest lesson that I've ever learned, or the thing I like to preach the most, it's make people excited, be excited to come to church. Make them want to be part of your team. And it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. It's just sometimes simply, celebrating the wins together, letting them know that they were a part of, because when we're so busy mixing or switching or running lights or whatever we're doing, we don't always see that person that raised their hand to accept Jesus. We don't always get to see that. And to be able to hear hey, we had a certain amount of salvations this past Sunday, and everybody like, you know what, you were a part of that. And so it just ignites a little more of that fire to keep doing it. And so also, setting up people for success is huge to me, to be able to, schedule out in a month in advance. Everybody has lives and schedules. So why not, take a little bit of time to make sure that it fits in their schedule, that they don't feel rushed or they don't feel overworked. And just Sunday mornings and just making sure that you're huddling around and like I said, celebrating the wins, but also taking time to just pray together, make it feel like a family, not just a group of people just doing what they're good at kind of thing. It's like, become a family, really learn how to celebrate one another, be able to cry together, be able to laugh together. I think it's biblical to be able to do that. And so that's one of those things that I like to be very intentional with, is not only checking in on Sunday, but throughout the week. Hey, how's your week going? What can I do for you? Is there anything you need? And like I said, it just gives that family feel that I think makes it more intentional.
I love that. I think, production specifically, it can be a very isolating ministry. You're assigned to, the broadcast suite or slides or camera 3, and you just go to your station. You might communicate over comms. You might see each other in the green room, but it can be, and we got a lot of introverts. It's, naturally a good fit for introverts, but then we can forget, oh yeah, camera 3 could be a lonely place if Steve doesn't know that I care about him, and there's not a connection of prayer, before the service. So Ivan, I just love the intentionality, that just remembering that these are people and you're celebrating the wins and you're connecting with them as real human beings. And I think that's just a great encouragement for all of us to remember. We can often treat our volunteers like equipment. We don't mean to, it just can happen.
Absolutely. And so I think as a leader, making your volunteers aware that, hey, I'm running with you. I'm not just giving you orders, but I'm running with you. I've always been drawn to leaders who lead by example, who don't just tell you what to do, but they're there with you. And I've always been like, yeah, I want to, whatever it takes to serve alongside you. I want to be a part of that, because I see you put in the work. I want to put in the work. And I think that goes a long way as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to, know their name, have lunch with them, maybe bury a body together when someone attacked your tech director. If you want that person to be ready to roll with you.
Yeah, that's really good advice, Jake.
Yep. I'm good with that, Tina. So, Yvonne, how do we, I just figured we had to all have the name mispronounced incorrectly at this point.
Perfect.
So Steve, could you tell us, how do you keep Sundays running? It sounds like you've got the right gear in place. You're loving your volunteers. I'm mining for one more thing. So Bertha, if you could just tell us, how do you keep Sundays running?
Show up early, be prepared, set people up for success, and make sure your gear is functional ahead of time, not 10 minutes before run through or service. Actually set yourself up with the amount of time needed to test everything. Even sometimes as a leader, before your volunteers get there, set them up for success, so that the stress of what could be coming in on a Sunday is just a little bit less.
I like that.
Yep.
On Church Tech Confessionals, which will come back in the fall, I'd like someone to confess, I never turned my gear on, for a month throughout the week. I never did a rehearsal, never did a check. I prayed and I turned it on Sunday.
I was always 10 minutes late. I love that. Just the earliness, the preparedness. Yeah. Setting your people up for success by planning ahead. I like it.
That's how you can keep Sundays running. Well,
Yeah.
Ivan, thank you, man, for joining us on the Church Gear podcast presented by House Right. Is there anything you want to plug? Anywhere you want to point people towards?
I did start a program called the Booth.io, and you can find us on Instagram. And so what that is, it's a community of production people coming together and doing life together. But also it's something that I had a burden for, where churches were like, I don't know where to go to learn more. And so I've been able to gather some of my friends who are pretty good at what they do. And then we pour back into our communities by having nights of training or just intentional fellowship. And so to me, that has been a huge win in our city. And I'd like to continue to do more of that. So the Booth.io, you can find us on Instagram.
That's awesome. So just search the Booth.io.
Yep.
I love
the Booth.
Yeah, that's great. The Church Tech community not having community events has been on our hearts a lot. Mm-hmm. That's why we do the mix events. You should reach out and come see one. Come to one of them this year. Or as Ivan just said, go to the Booth.io. Like, community is so important. That's awesome, man.
Absolutely.
All right. Well,
yeah.
Look at that. We did an episode and we didn't kill each other, Toby.
We did not yet.
Not yet. All right. Well, let's wrap this episode and we'll pull out the knives.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
All right, Blake. So now that we're done with the episode, how would you like to kill me? I was thinking of maybe grabbing, a crowbar.
Toby, are you going to talk to me like there's not a knife protruding from my chest right now? Oh. You've already struck first.
I figure you're going to mix a drink and just drop a little, special sauce in there that will kill me.
Well, I'll put some chartreuse on this knife wound and I'll be fine. It always heals me. What do you think would heal our friends out there? I mean, probably not killing their brothers and sisters, but rather reaching out and sharing this episode among other things, going to the Booth.io, going to, the mix events and just building that community. Yeah, so, share the good news with them, which is that the Church Gear podcast has some nonsense for you. Just kidding. I think that was heresy.